What's up, everybody? Welcome back to SPG Unfiltered. Today's guest is someone who was there with me during one of the wildest summers of my life and someone I've watched evolve into a disciplined, high performing, God fearing man, a father, husband, and an entrepreneur. Matthew Sessa was one of my mentors back in my door to door days. We sold together, we lived together, we partied and spiraled together. And fast forward, we both got sober, found purpose, and built lives that would have felt impossible at the time when we met. And Matt now runs his own brokerage, speaks publicly, and uses his story to lead. Fitness, faith, and family are all part of his core identity. And I think this conversation is going to hit home for a lot of you who are chasing success, but still healing. So let's rewind a little bit. That summer we lived together, absolute madness. What do you remember most about that period of your life?
The period of my life or that summer? Well, one thing that I'm forever scarred from that summer. Physically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
I almost forgot
getting
about that.
getting knocked out that night. I don't remember that at all, but the scar lives on.
Yeah. That night was an interesting night for everybody. I think a couple of us narrowly avoided being arrested, myself included. Um, there was some driving involved that there should not have been. But my buddy was in the hospital, so that was all I knew. And that's how I was going to get to the hospital. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's wild
blindsided.
looking.
Full
Yeah,
disclosure, blindsided, hit my face on the corner of a pool table, woke up in the hospital. That was it was pretty scary because I just woke up
that
with a
was
needle
right before your
and they're
wedding too, wasn't it?
hold still. Yeah, that was the final summer before my wedding, and probably my wildest summer yet. So the summers
Yeah,
got
glad I could be
progressively
there for that.
worse. I think I came back the lightest that year. I came back 35 pounds lighter. We lost 35 pounds in about 4 months.
Yeah,
Good burn rate.
that's
I mean,
healthy
as far
weight you
as
were losing too. It's not fat you're talking about. Like you lost some healthy muscle.
yeah, yes, we did.
But it's wild looking back. We were chasing validation a lot. There was a lot of numbing, some pain, also trying to win at all costs, right? In that door to door environment and sales. Do you think
We
that
were winning.
time taught us? We were,
We were.
but
I remember the car groups. We had. I think we classified the car groups by acronym. I think we had the AA or the addicts, and maybe it was like LDS or like the Mormons, and then like there was a third one. I don't really remember that well, but
I don't either. But there definitely was because I think that was Mo's group, right?
there was a racial slur in there about terrorism
Uh,
or something. Yeah.
but I mean, we were chasing a lot of validation and things. Do you think that time taught us enough about leadership and pressure, even though we were, completely unregulated in the way we were approaching things?
Taught us enough or taught us at all?
I mean, do you think you took anything from that summer for leadership?
I don't think I was really a leader at that point. I mean, I was a leader, but not a good one. Um, at that point, I still couldn't really speak in front of a group publicly without extreme social anxiety.
Mm.
Um, in terms of office responsibility, I really didn't do a ton. Uh, I think my role at that time was probably to lead production and to lead my portion of the group so that we could work our collective pay scale. But there wasn't a lot of leadership. Now, in terms of, like leading us out to Auburn on a Thursday night, um, wait, was that this summer or was that a different summer? Oh, no, we were in, that was
Alabama. We were in Birmingham.
Yeah, so we did. That was the summer with Auburn, right? Where we went an
Mhm.
hour north to Auburn,
I think so.
right?
Yeah.
And Nick Saban was like south of us in
Yeah.
Tuscaloosa, Birmingham.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that
We
was
were
the
we were
summer.
in his
Yeah, I mean,
neighborhood
I
for a
remember
while.
those. I mean, I would lead those every Thursday. I mean, if it was about going, every night, it was like, let's go to the gas station. I would lead on that. I make sure to buy the Budweiser, and to buy the cigarettes and make sure that everybody had one in hand. I would lead on the Adderall. I would make sure that everybody had some before their shift, right? And I would probably, I think Dom and I would go back and forth on, drug and alcohol efforts over the weekend. But I mean, if it was the weekend, the expectation was to party, that we were going to party, and
Yeah,
we
I
were
mean
going to party hard, and we chased the
there was a
party.
couple weekends. Yeah, there was a couple weekends that you know, it was a Friday and I made 3 sales before noon, so I just put $1,500 in my pocket. And so now I'm like, I don't need to work for the rest of the day. I can start partying now. You know what I mean? And I think that mindset really held us back a lot.
Yeah, you were lazy in terms of that. You started off pretty strong, but I mean, I think we just didn't know a lot then. And so I'd say like where I've come now compared to that summer was just, another summer of pain. But I mean, that's kind of what had broken me out of the year round, or excuse me, the summer life, and then got me into year round, and really sobriety the next year. And my story goes, it's a long story, long testimony, but I mean, we didn't even understand. Like, one thing I vividly remember was like you having smoothies and us trying to eat right. And I remember being, we would go shopping at Trader Joe's, and it's like, all right, let's have a smoothie after the gym, because we were also on a lot of performance enhancing drugs at the time. And so it's like, all right, let's maximize this. Let's make sure that we have a big smoothie after the gym. And we would fill it up with a couple of scoops of protein. I mean, you would do like a half thing of almond milk, cups full of berries, orange juice, maybe some spinach in there, some yogurt.
Eggs, raw
Understanding
eggs, like
understanding now, I mean, that thing was just a glucose bomb, just a sugar, but and I always felt like crap afterwards. And I'm like, I just don't understand why I feel so bad after eating these, but like just really didn't understand diet at all at that
yeah.
point. Like, eat a lot of protein, you know, let's look good, but just really had no idea what I was doing in terms of that, or even leadership at that time. All I knew was I wanted to make a lot of money, and so the way I would do that was by bringing guys with me. Uh, and there's two things that we did. It was go out and make money during the day and party at night. And that was my life for a decade. I had 2 decades.
Yeah, because you started in the sales world pretty early on, right, in your career. So that's something that probably started off just as early as far as the partying and everything goes.
Yeah.
But like you had mentioned, it was that following year, right? So after that summer that we had, and getting married and everything, is kind of when you found your sobriety. It took me a lot longer. It took me another 4 years, but I did go into the military that following year. Uh, so when we parted ways, I shipped off to the Marines. Is that when you found your faith as well? Take me back to that turning point for you. What broke and kind of opened up? Because I know, uh, I knew you were a great man then, but like we were both in a not so great spot with ourselves. So what was it for you, that real turning point?
In terms of sobriety or faith?
Were the two mutually exclusive?
Not even close.
So however you want to go for it for you for that story.
So we got back from summer 2019, and that was my third summer doing that. And I knew it just wasn't sustainable, and I was getting married. Hung it up that year, and that January decided for like the third or fourth year in a row that I was going to get sober. And every year had been a little bit longer. So in 2019, the summer that we went out, I was actually sober up until April, middle of April. I mean, I was sober when we got out of summer, and I was going to try to make it run. I just, I think maybe we were there a week and a half before I, started
Yeah, it
drinking.
didn't take long.
That's when the wheels came off. And so the year before it was 3 months, year before it was like a month. Right. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to give it this, I'm going to do a full year, just because I transitioned. I got into solar. I was living year round, and I started doing pretty well at that. And I was around a good group of guys. And so, yeah, I was going to get sober, and I did it for 8.5 months. I white knuckled it. I had a, pretty tough story. Ended up losing my best friend, or my best man, to suicide in my house that year. Pretty graphic, happened, with one of my firearms. And so, I fell off for a few weeks. And so when I'd fallen off, I fell off 3 Thursdays in a row, and it kind of culminated with, me walking down the street with a half gallon of Crown, barefoot, driving to my drug, or trying to get to my drug dealer's house, because my wife had blocked in my car. So I was determined I was going to walk there. And eventually, I snuck the car out of the garage, scraped it up, and I went out to go just do my thing. And so I met an angel that night. Long story, but I ended up at an AA meeting the next morning, and that's when I really found AA in sobriety. And so that ran for 11 and a half months. And then I had a buddy who asked me to be the best man in his wedding that had known my best man. And so we went out on his bachelor party, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this year of sobriety to honor my buddy. He wouldn't want me to miss out on this experience as the best man, with all these guys that I'd grown up with. I threw it away. So collectively, I'd had, almost 2 years between the two runs, with the exception of those few weeks in between, and I felt pretty good. And so I thought I could manage my sobriety well, and I did for a little bit, but as they'll tell you, it came roaring back, and so I started doing travel again because I'd done 2 years of solar here in Arizona, and the market had just dried up. So this is when I started my first business that was truly my business, and I started traveling back to my hometown. And for the first few months, I was able to manage sobriety. And, we'd go out there and we'd party, and, I'd leave it out there, kind of living a double life. Come back here, wasn't lying about what I was doing out there. Certainly wasn't telling all that I was doing out there. But it grew and it spiraled. And so that was at the end of 2021. And so by the end of 2023, I was just in all out addiction. I mean, the worst addiction that I'd ever been in. Terms of starting drinking pretty early in the day. Uh, I couldn't get enough nicotine, Adderall, or marijuana. The weekends I was still binging with all my designer drugs here and there,
Uh,
and it was just full out addiction. So it starting last year, I wanted to really leave it all behind. And so I tried to leave it all behind with the guys that I was with, but that just ended up blowing up. And so long story short, I ended up telling the guys we were going to do a 75 hard, and if they wanted to party, this wasn't the place for them anymore. I just wasn't going to condone it. And so I had a pretty good uprising, and a lot of these guys that I had truly helped over the years kind of initially lifted them out of where they were at, but ultimately probably become a bad influence for them. So I take responsibility for it. Had turned on me, and there's some betrayals that took place. Part of that was some blackmail. Part of that was being attacked and defending myself, and ultimately going to jail, picking up a few felonies, uh, almost divorcing my wife, almost committing suicide. And it just really culminated in a big way. And so when I was in jail, I actually got saved. I was in one of the most I got 2 aggravated batteries with a deadly weapon, all of which were dismissed. I mean, once they got the camera footage, it was pretty simple. Never even made it to the courtroom. That was that was one of my lowest points, and that's when I realized, as I sat there in jail, and I had I think almost 300 grand at home in cash in my safe. And I'm like, dude, if my wife leaves me, she could just take everything, and I would lose everything that I'd had, and I'd worked so hard to build. And I really had this like dream life, but it just wasn't enough for me because I wanted the dopamine hits of going out, and, the thrill of the chase, and, all these external pleasures of the world, and seeking validation ultimately, because I had a God-sized hole in me, which I didn't understand at the time. So, fast forward, we end up, repairing our marriage and making it through it last year. And I found, I got reacquainted with Jesus in jail, but I didn't really have a relationship with him. It was just something that I was doing because I felt like it was the right thing to do, and it was appeasing my wife. You have to understand that Jordy and I, when we initially got together, we agreed to be spiritual people. And, she was raised Jehovah. I was raised heavily Christian. And we didn't, we agreed that, 3 things. One, we would never get divorced. 2, we wanted to have a big family. And 3, that we were spiritual people, not religious people. And so, we got in some fights about this last year, because I'm like, hey, we talked about this. And, God had really, really moved in her. And so, at the beginning of this year, we started really going to a new church and taking it seriously, which was cool. But I was experiencing an extreme amount of conviction for some areas of my life where I still wasn't, in congruence. And, I had to get right with God, and then I had to get right with my wife. And that was hard. And so I reached out to my pastor, asking for help. And that ultimately led me to an event in Texas with a guy named Steve Weatherford. And, I went to this event really looking to, kind of clear up one area of my life, one addiction that I was struggling with, having been sober now almost a year and a half, March 17th, 2024, right before I went to jail. That was my last day drinking. And
I
so,
hit just over a year in July. I also went to jail at the beginning of the year. Only I went for a week and got out 2 years. So I'm on 2 years of probation now.
yeah, you were telling me. Well, sorry for
So
rambling here. I'll close
oh
out
no,
for you.
you're
But
good. You're good, brother.
um, with Steve, I mean, I went in there looking to, kind of fix one thing, that was broken so that I think I could be an upstanding man. It was just something that was having up heavy. And I really had no idea, I think, how lost I was. And so, I really love this story in the Bible about the prodigal son. And it's always resonated with me. And people have always told me that even since I was a teenager, I was like, I'm going to have a gnarly testimony. And I mean, we're scratching the surface, very, very lightly. And, probably what I'm willing to share publicly here. But I mean, I have a gnarly testimony. Ultimately, it culminated in an experience there at the launch pad where I was like, I just kind of want to believe this is real because I really don't think it's real. I think, if I'm being honest, um, and that was my intention for that weekend. And I was moved in a way that is hard to describe if you weren't there, but I will just say that um, demonic forces and evil is a very, very real thing, much more than I ever knew. The things that could be on, around, or inside of you, and getting relief from that, and really experiencing deliverance and the miracle that happened there, and then getting some confirmation of that when I came home the next day was pretty cool. We went to church, and I was still in awe of everything that happened. It was pretty powerful. I had about 100 guys laying their hands on me in this massive circle at one point as I was, on the ground, basically blacked out from, what had culminated. And that's not a normal thing at those events, but for me, it was. And so I was in disbelief. I'm like, was that real? Was that state like what?
You cut out.
And sorry, did
I
my
got you
phone cut
back.
out? You good?
Nope. Yep. We got you.
Yeah, yeah. We had a guest pastor at our church that day, and we drove by him in the parking lot. Never met the guy. Waved at him. There's 500 people in our church, not a small church. Didn't know this guy. And, at the end of service, he gives this sermon about, miracles, which is pretty crazy. And he's talking about like, anybody need a miracle? And I'm like, I had mine yesterday. He's like, anybody experienced one? I'm like, yeah, I certainly
There
did.
it
And
is.
that's what I'm thinking. So, he closes out, asks people if they want to experience salvation. I'm like, good. I finally got mine, and then he's going to walk off stage and he's like, oh, by the way, it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. God put this on my heart. There's a family here. He was like drove by me in the parking lot, like, a little baby. It's like, you guys are, it's like, we're way in the back. And he's like, yeah, yeah, you. He's like, yeah, I just, super weird. I don't usually do this. He's like, but God just wanted me to tell you that you are about to have some massive transformation, radical change in your life. And, their
That's
businesses are
awesome.
about to start flowing. And it was everything that they had, kind of went over the day before when they prayed. Like one of the guys was like, hey, dude, I kind of prophesying here, but I just see that God's about to just start making it rain in your businesses and in your life, and you're about to experience healing. And like, that dude said the same thing on stage. They didn't know each other. We're in, Arizona
Yeah.
and Texas. Like there's
Yeah.
just
That's
no.
nuts.
And so I experienced, so that was when, my faith became very, very real. And it wasn't faith, it's a relationship with Jesus, versus, the sobriety that I had, experienced, for a year and a half. Now this is my longest run ever. I'd actually never done a year. And so, yeah,
Well, congratulations on that, first of all.
thanks, dude. Yeah, I
Um,
hope that
and
answers your question.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about what you're building now. You run a brokerage. You've done some public speaking, which you've said was a big uh, thing that you overcame with your own personal comfort levels, right? And you're leading in your community now. So, how do you bring your past into the way that you lead today?
I was thinking about my testimony this morning, and I think that's something that I'm still learning. Essentially, you have to be grateful for your past because I don't think I wouldn't be who I am without it. But I'm unashamed of it, and it's just a tool that I can share and connect with other people on. It's given me a lot of experience. Um, I really like in both of my businesses, helping. Yeah, and we talk about the bad back then. I mean, we were definitely doing bad things, but we weren't bad people. I always remember you having a very kind heart and very lighthearted personality and being fun. And I always, really loved you. And I remember you used to like joke around and call me dad, um, but
Well,
we were
if you
all in
remember,
it.
that's because we were like in the car arguing about something, and I like accidentally would said like "dad" or something like
Yeah,
that, and it was in a
I do
car full
actually.
of us, and I was like in the
Yeah,
middle, and I was like, "Fuck!" I was like, "That just happened." I was
that's
like, "I
fun.
just called this dude my dad. Fuck me." But
But it's because I mean, I don't recall for certainty, but I know I have, a lot of father wounds. A really good book right here that's helped me, Fathered by God by John Eldridge. And understanding that I think most men that, have issues, probably largely have, issues related to not being fathered in the way that they needed, or some kind of childhood trauma. I mean, we all have it to some degree. And so I get to do that now for my kids, and I get to lead as a father, and that's super fulfilling and healing. And I always, remembered as a kid, how much I wanted to be a dad because some of the pain that I had from my dad, and saying like, I would just never do that to my son. I will never do that. And then in those first few years of their life, I have four kids. The oldest is four, but when I was traveling a couple years ago and they were babies, like I was being selfish. There was a morning where I came home, and was just doing, drugs around the house. I hadn't slept, and I was just not myself, and they could tell. And that was kind of the breaking point, really, in end of 2023, before I went and did ayahuasca. That was that last night. I went and did ayahuasca, and that's when I thought I'd found God, and when I thought
I was
I'd
gonna say I
found
would like to talk to you about that sometime for sure.
well, I thought I'd met God till I actually, had a relationship with Jesus because I was very spiritual. And so that was good. That got me on the path to sobriety, but I cracked that path, during some blackmail that had happened in early 2024. And during, basically that and, traveling back to New Mexico and thinking I could sneak one last night. It was my thing. I'm like, I'll just sneak one last night. Nobody's ever going to know. Just blew up. Um, and yeah, so I mean, really, I'm coming up on 2 years if that hadn't happened, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. So I say all this, I guess, to say that like, how does my past affect me? My past is essentially a tool or a superpower that's made me who I am, and I wouldn't be who I am without it. So I completely embrace it, and share it as a gift, to be able to help and connect other people. I found a lot of fulfillment. I think that for men, most men have, hurt that they need to address. And so whether it's fathering my own children or helping other young men, even back again to when we were together, like I always loved trying to mentor you guys and help you guys in the way I could. I just had some vices and some demons that I was still battling. And, we were all similar in that matter. And that's why we got along so well, because we were all very similar creatures doing that. And so I was a
Yeah,
bad leader at
I
that
think
time.
we were a group of just lost people, realistically. And I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, a group of lost boys. And I was
yeah,
Peter.
and something like it. There you go. Is that what you have tattooed there?
That's what it is, dude.
There you go. There you go. Dude, there's so much overlap, I feel like, in how you've built your brand and how I'm building my brand through, structure. I know fitness has always been a huge thing for you. And now with faith and family, you really I don't think you believe in fluff. You know what I mean? I don't believe you believe in bullshitting people. Even when we were in sales, that was always something that wasn't a thing that we were about. You know what I mean? Because we didn't want to have to deal with the bullshit that came from it. Realistically,
Yeah.
um,
And it's funny because I was held a, and still do to this day, hold a very high line with integrity. And so, like,
yeah.
just be honest with people.
And I think that's what more people need, is they need less hacks and they need to find that healing system. Right? For you, it was, religion was the final stepping stone. It sounds like, or the
Relationship.
first stepping stone in your.
Relationship. Religion is not, it is relationship. It is coming to understand who Jesus is and what he's done for us, and that uh, freeing gift that he has given us in salvation, right? And that was my aha, because I went to that event that weekend. We did the lunges, we did 1,000 lunges, we did the ice baths where they bring us these dudes are having breakthroughs after breakthrough. We're praying, we're worshiping, we're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I never felt more alone than in that room full of guys that were like, and God was clearly there. And I wrote that down. And I was getting suicidal in that room. I'm like, well, I get, because I've been paid a lot of money over the years for personal development with, different organizations and things. And I'm like, well, this is a free event. It's invite only. And man, if I can't find it here where these guys just have genuine intentions and this is real, I don't know where I'm going to find it. But when a guy was giving his testimony, and I was feeling, ashamed and, just unworthiness, just massive unworthiness, massive shame, and just guilt, depression, darkness. And I heard him share, oh, and if you're feeling this way, like that's why Jesus died. And it was like this aha moment because I've heard it my whole life, but it clicked. I'm like, oh, that's what this is. And so when I went through the rest of my experience and understood, praying now, like what God's voice sounds like, and like, having a relationship, it's not religion. And that was my
I
mistake.
do I
So,
do like that because I do think a lot of us also come from a background uh, that has a poor relationship with structured religion early on in our lives.
mhm.
Um, Especially just the environments we were brought up in. I think a lot of that puts a poor taste in people's mouth for religion. So I do like that you differentiate
Yeah,
between religion and having that relationship. I think it's one of the most sacred responsibilities we have, regardless of your faith, is to show people that it's possible that you can walk away from destruction, right? You can start to build something truly powerful when you start to really do things right, you know? So you mentored me when we were still figuring it out. And obviously, we are still figuring it out every day. But now we're both in roles where we're guiding others. What does like mentorship mean to you now versus what it meant to you back then?
I understand the responsibility that comes with it. And I guess the biggest thing, that I think is a duty or responsibility of a mentor, is to lead that person if they want to be led, um, to the healing that comes from just like to trying to get to healing, because I think it's hard to get to growth if I don't know if you can get to growth without having healing first. Yeah, I think religion is often trauma for people. I think that a lot of people have, sexual hurts potentially from a young age. A lot of people have, mom or dad hurts from a young age. A lot of people have rejection hurts from, social things that happen from a young age, potentially financial instability, or whatever, that trauma is. It's addressing that and seeking help and professional help, and getting healing of that so that you can move forward, right? Stewarding your gifts in terms of like some of those main verticals that you mentioned, like, fitness, finances, faith, like getting your house in order in terms of those things, and making sure that you are working hard to develop them or utilize them, not just going through life like most people do with no guide, no plan, no map, right? But in order to be able to put that plan together and that map and that guide, um, usually, I mean, you can do it, but it's probably going to keep taking you back to the start in terms of getting some healing in a lot of those, those events from our past. Because mostly hurt people, right? Once you're a
Absolutely.
healed person, then healed people heal people.
And I've just recently, like within the last few months, started making that transition. To be honest, like even my 4 years in the military, I was still very much a hurt person, and if anything, it made it worse because the culture that I was in was so heavily focused on like the external expression of violence, right? And so that combined with the alcohol, everything got solved by anger and alcohol.
Hmm.
And then so once I got out, not only did I not have that, but I didn't have anybody. And so I went through the same thing as far as the suicidal ideations, um, and really struggling to find myself. So we've been there when you don't see a way out. You know, if someone listening right now does feel stuck, like they're in the chaos and they don't see a way out, what would you say to them?
I would ask them more questions to try to get to know them. But somebody who's stuck in the chaos, they can't see their way out.
Let's reframe it a little bit. Let's say, what would you say to yourself from that summer?
Man, I didn't even know what I didn't know back then. It's always hard to hear somebody else say it, but there is a master plan for your life that you probably don't know about. And usually things are going pretty spot on to that plan. And so if you can have faith and understand that you're probably on the way to where you need to be, as long as you're generally taking the right actions to get there. Like if you're just using drugs every day and you're homeless and you're like, that's where I'm at, that's where I want to be. You're there for a reason, but it doesn't sound like you're taking actionable steps to change that. Now, if you're taking actionable steps to change, or you're making a conscious effort to um, have the your dream life, or to make improvements to your life, and you're not getting there as fast as you want to be, and you're discouraged, that's where I would say have faith and keep doing it, keep doing the little things, because it's crazy to see how far you've come when you look behind you. But you just got to keep putting one foot in front of another, and keep working forward and doing it with a positive mindset, and with a good heart posture and intentions. Some things that can accelerate that are making sure that you have a good group of people around you, and you have a good plan that you're working, right? Good relationships will either make or break your success, I think, ultimately. And if you don't have a plan, well, then you've made a plan to fail.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to say, for everybody as well, that healing is not linear, right? Leadership is not about perfection, uh, but it is about integrity and progress, like we said. So whether you're a dad, a business owner, a coach, or just a man trying to get back up, right? You're not broken. You're probably unregulated in some sense. Whether it's, we completely tanked our not only like our circadian rhythms with the way that we were living, but like our central nervous systems, everything. We were completely shutting down our body. um, you're just unsupported, like you said, unstructured, and that's kind of what we're here to fix. So what is your focus now that you're kind of in this space where you can uh or do you feel like you're in a space where you can kind of like move forward now, like you have that solid ground? Is the brokerage the final picture? What are we thinking?
Definitely go day by day, but that's really my only choice right now. So newer in my faith, and really digging into that area of my life, with a core group of men, and a course that I'm taking right now with those guys, really getting a deep understanding of who I am, my identity, my core values, what my action plan is, who my circle is, things like that. So that's my primary focus, is continuing my healing, before I could probably help heal others. Like I definitely can give some insight, love, helping guys that I work with, or even a stranger off the street, to improve their life or reach their max potential. But I don't know that I'm ready for that yet, though I do really want to do that. And I, really do get excited about that. In terms of day to day in my life, I have four children. Like I said, the oldest is four. You can't even begin to, you don't understand that yet, right?
I don't even.
That
Yeah.
comes with a wife, and that's a whole nother thing. And I have a couple more kids. One's a toddler and one's a newborn. In terms of businesses, my real estate firm is, it's been pretty cool to graduate in terms of different accolades in my professional career. So going from being a top excelling sales guy at Vivint and kind of a manager, to being a top excelling sales guy in solar, and actually a manager, and then actually a business owner, and then running a business, you know, it's a sales organization, not truly a business. And then with my real estate firm, running a business that's actually a business, and runs independently of me. So I could go on vacation tomorrow for a month. Like those are some of the levels. You start out in sales, and then you're manager, and then potentially an owner, and but you're all in, and then you can graduate to the point where your business runs without you. That's a whole new achievement. And so now
Yeah,
it's
that's
I'm
the
on to
goal one
another
day.
business. a window replacement business that I'm partnered on. Another, I think, tidbit for people is you can go a lot farther together than individually. So I wanted to go
Absolutely.
fast in solar, and I went individually, and I went fast, made a ton of money. But I burned up and I incinerated. And so now, finding, the right circle with the right people and going together really, I think is going to allow us to go the distance with this business and build something, at the next level that not only runs on its own, but is scalable and sellable. And, it's a whole new game, going out and building something and then selling it, because then you can retire. And
Yeah.
that's my goal, is to hopefully
That's
sell
really
this thing.
that's the only way to do it nowadays. Like a regular 9 to 5 W-2, you're not going to retire. Like
Yeah.
realistically nowadays,
I hope to
that's not
retire
even
in
an
5
option.
years, right around the ripe old age of 40. It's always been my
There you
goal.
go.
Somehow it might
As you
happen.
should.
We'll see.
There. Well, Matt, I appreciate you, brother. This was powerful. If you've got value from this episode, send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Subscribe to SPG Unfiltered on Spotify and YouTube. You can find me at SPG Fitness and Wellness on Instagram. And Matt, tell the people where they can find you. You've got a couple things going, so
Yeah, you can find me on my website, mattsessa.co, just mattsessa.co. But mainly I'm on my Instagram, matt.sessa, Matt Sessa. Plenty of other channels to find me on, but that's the main one I'm on.
perfect. Thank you. We've got more stories like this coming. Matt, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, dude, I love you, bro.